Okay, hey everyone. Welcome as ever to Daily Footy, another sports with myself, Taz, and Sean. There he is. Okay, he's acting weird already. Okay, we've got a couple of things we are going to discuss today. First and foremost, I think a lot of you have probably found out on BBC that the IOC are basically giving themselves a 4-week time span to make a decision on the Olympics. What do you think?
Well, it helped to delay the possibility of basically postponing the biggest sports tournament in the world. And it's good that they actually are considering doing it to something of the nature of the Olympics, and it just makes you wonder why can Vince McMahon do that for something that maybe WrestleMania is seen as a sports pinnacle of wrestling, but people see Olympics as for all forms of sport. So if the Olympic Committee are willing to do that in regards to the biggest event every 4 years, then why not for everyone else?
Well, for one thing, you get 4 WrestleManias compared to 1 Olympics. So, yeah. I mean, for starters, it is the Olympics are to be probably the greatest show on earth, isn't it? Although some people might say it's the World Cup. It's a good old debate. I like those kind of conversations. But frankly speaking, I mean, it's just an absolute mixture of so many different sports and so many appeals to so many different people who will watch it just because it's the Olympics, and there'll be actual fans of each particular type of sport that are desperate to see, their homegrown talent do really well. But I'm just thinking to myself, well, it's probably about the right time. What is it? Yeah, it's coming up to the end of March now. Olympics will usually be sometime in July, I think. I mean, I was pondering going there, about a year or so ago, but decided not to in the end. But I think there's just about enough time right now, with it being about 4 months away, for them to sort of make a decision, give people an opportunity to get ticket refunds if they want, or if they have to delay it or something like that. They can, they'll be given an opportunity to get the rescheduled versions of the tickets. Now, obviously, like I said, I mean, I'm waiting on what's going on with the Snooker World Championships. It's very easy for me to call them up or something and say I'd like a refund because I'm not really sure what if and when it's going to go ahead. But they actually said, please don't call in, because we're actually sort of trying to work out what potential change of date we might have, and if and when we have a rough idea that when we're going to make a decision, that's probably the best time for you to give a call if you do have a change of heart or something like that. So I think they're giving themselves a decent time span. I think in their heart of hearts they're thinking, well, maybe things will improve in a month, enough for us to say, well, it should be fine. But you have to appreciate, Japan's not that far away from China, and as we know only too well. I mean, there's even been one Japanese person, I think you mentioned in the first or second video, that got the virus and then recovered from it, and then sadly got it again. You don't want that to happen, certainly not in mass. It's you're talking about millions of people going to Japan for the Olympics, and you have to put everybody's health and well-being first. And I don't know, what do you think? I mean, they have a little bit of time to sort of find out what's going on and see if they can actually sort of go ahead as expected, but would you postpone it?
So here's another dilemma. It also depends on how the public behave within critically within this month. The problem that Japan has to deal with in regards to the Olympics is that they are not only have to see how the government of their own country deals with the whole pandemic, see how the people of other countries are dealing with people trying to oblige by the rules of isolation. Even Boris Johnson has just recently announced that people are still not listening to the rulings. The reason why I mention this is that he has predicted that if we do stick by the guidelines, it could go down by 3 months. The Olympics are in 4 months, then therefore it could possibly have an opportunity of having it in a probably smaller scale. So it's really critical that they take it by probably a monthly basis to see what, if anything, has changed and if there's a possibility of hosting the events in the first place.
Yeah, I appreciate that they have to take it on a month-to-month basis. The thing is, if you look at all the other events that you're dealing with that are going on every year, pretty much, this is just so hard to reschedule. So it's so hard to reschedule. It's so many different people coming from different parts of the world and things like that. You could argue that maybe Wimbledon's probably one of the biggest dates in every single calendar year, certainly in the UK. You just get so many people from all over the place coming in. Whether they really want to experience Wimbledon, just in general, they want to experience the camping part of it, and queue up like I do. I love doing that. Or whether they've managed to successfully get tickets in the ballot, and they obviously want to go watch it accordingly. But it's just way too risky, and there are a lot of people who've coughed up a lot of money, not just on flights, but in my research for actually when I was going to go there potentially, I sort of discovered that you are certainly offered more in the way of ticket packages. It's really hard to actually find individual tickets for events. They sort of sell you packages and things like that, and they aren't cheap either. So there are so many different elements, flights, hotels, packages. If you're lucky enough, you can buy individual events, but it's not cheap. And understandably, it's Japan's a beautiful place, I've heard, but it's not a cheap country to go and visit either. So if it's possible for people to get a refund, they'd probably want to know sooner than later.
It's not only that. It's not only the people attending. It's also Japan has to pay a lot of money in order to earn the right to host it. You're probably the biggest 2012 fan we've ever had, and Britain worked really hard to earn the right. So Japan will be asking, what do we do? Do we have the chance to perhaps host next year or the year after? Then that impedes the host of 2024 as well. 2024. So there's so many other conundrums, but as you said, we're just talking about other factors, and the main thing is that the health of everybody is paramount. And the reason why they want to look at it within a month is if the coronavirus can hopefully succeed, but there's even speculation that it will last till 2021. So this is why we just do not know, and it really does depend on whoever obliged you to advise to isolate. If we isolate, then we can help cause so many more benefits to society to have all sports to come back as quickly as possible. But if we're still going to the park, ignoring that businesses should be closed, then the Olympics will definitely be shut down. And that's a shame.
Yeah, my personal opinion is I'm not sure it's going to happen. I just think they're trying to be as hopeful as possible, given the nature of the event, given the importance of the event. I think we've already got a situation, obviously, with the upcoming World Cup, where I think it's likely to have to be held in around winter time, isn't it? So it's that's that's a whole new dilemma. We'll get to that in a couple of years' time if we're still here. But no, honestly, they're just, it's clear that they're just trying to find some way of getting it across the line, but it's just so hard to sort of look that far ahead, really.
Another factor is for our diehard computer game fans, if they cancel the 2020 Olympics, what's going to happen to Mario versus Sonic Olympics for the Nintendo Switch?
Um,
I'm joking. It's just there's talking about advertisement sponsorships.
well, I mean, I don't really know how many Nintendo fans we've got, so I don't know who you're aiming at, but apart from yourself. But yeah, it's just you promoting it to yourself. Okay, but
sponsorships, advertisement, how they're going to be impacted by the possibility of the Olympics being delayed. I'm sure that they used to have Euro and World Cup games made for specifically of the events as well. They've definitely been impacted. Sponsorships have been impacted. A lot of these factors need to be taken into consideration.
I appreciate that they're very important as well. I just think as fans and as competitors as well, all they care about truly is health and well-being, both themselves and the people watching, and being able to compete the right way, and do it, just perform to the best of their ability. They don't want to be standing the start line for 100 meters or something thinking, I don't know, I heard somebody cough earlier on, I'm not sure what to do, should I be running, I don't know if this is safe, and you start having those kinds of doubts that you're just not in the right mindset, really. So yeah, but I think in about 4 weeks' time we'll have, or even prior to that, we'll have a proper update regarding this, but I think it was important for us to bring it up.
One more thing to mention is, I remember 4 years ago, me, Taz, were with another friend. We were outside, probably somewhere in east of London, and then he drove us to his place just on time to see the finale race of a marathon of a certain Usain Bolt. In that run he had, apparently he was carrying something, and he wasn't able to win that particular 100-meter race, and everybody was looking for excuses and why he wasn't able to achieve the victory in his final race. You do not want someone being worried by a cuff, as he suggested, to come up as an excuse why they may have not succeeded in the Olympics, and they would taint a lot of gold medals being or silver medals, bronze medals, because we know a guy that broke his freaking neck in the 1996 Olympics and won. And that was beyond human strength. We don't want someone to say, "Oh, I won because I heard the other competitors were too scared about someone coughing."
Maybe he just forgot to have his chicken nuggets for the day. I heard he had a pre-run ritual of having nuggets before he ran. I didn't know whether to think it was serious or not, but I mean, I'm fairly sure he actually said it himself. But okay, we'll move on now. Very briefly touching on the next subject, which is just a quick move back to snooker, and just kind of say a well done to the WPBSA. That's the World Pool Billiards and Snooker Association, and because they have, yeah, it's all right, because they've basically started, helping out players and giving them money to sort of help them go along. Now, obviously, snooker's been around for a very, very long time. You could definitely argue it's incredibly popular right now. It's so hard to actually get tickets for the main event, like the Worlds, the Masters, the UK Champs, and things like that. Certainly the latter stages, but they still don't get paid as well as you kind of would have expect for someone who's such a popular sport. Certainly in the UK, football's very, very well paid in the higher, the higher ranked tournaments and things like that, but they're really not. I mean, like, if you get to the pinnacle of the world, you do get paid pretty well, the Masters pretty well, but a lot of these players have to pay to get to these tournaments as well, and the amount you get paid is dependent on how far into the tournament you get. Players are paid on a weekly basis regardless of the result they get, and if anything, they get bonuses on top of that. So I just think it's really good that the association's trying to support the players a little bit more. It's, I read an article from, I think, Scott Donaldson, who is actually Scottish, who actually said, a lot of us are not going to be playing for the next 3 or 4 months at least, and it's okay for someone like him who's seeded 23, I think he is, but it's not so easy for someone who's far lower down the rankings, who just can't afford to sort of be without these tournaments. The difference between them paying, say, 100 quid to go somewhere and then potentially coming back with a couple of grand in the process makes a massive difference to them. But they might be saving that 100 quid, but they're not bringing in any money in the process. So it's really good that snooker, the association, is trying to basically look out for some of their players. It's a really nice touch, I think. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but it's good to hear your opinion as well.
So I think you said a lot. That you have to think about another factor. It's snooker does require a lot of training. It is a skill set. It's also a mental skill set as well. If these performers, these sportsmen, are still sportswomen as well, maybe, I'm not that aware, but these sports stars are under financial restraints, how are they going to prepare whenever it eventually returns? Therefore, they won't be able to prepare as well as possible when the World Cup can recommence, World Championships can recommence, and therefore it just makes it more difficult for them to even have the opportunity to climb up the rankings, and it hits them furthermore. And then they may not have that opportunity that they could have had in April to perhaps defy the odds, because there have been occasions even this century that the favourite just didn't win, and other people were able to outperform the favourite. This is what's really good about snooker. But I'm thinking about Jimmy Fly snooker, but snooker, there have been upset, and we do not want that upset to be taken away. The whole basis that we've been talking about right now is that we want to make sure that not only that the sports stars are not hindered in order to perform, we want them to be healthy, but we do not want their performance to be hindered by any way, because we want everyone to have an equal opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember the last time a player actually managed to defend the world title after they won it for the first time, as it happens, because there have been a number of players that have actually won it in recent years and hadn't won it before, and I don't know whether they actually defended the title. Judd Trump's the current champion, so he's the only one that's in a position to do it right now. Neil Robertson, I think, has only won it once. He hasn't defended it. Mark Selby's won it maybe 3 times. I think he won it, then didn't win it, and then he won it back to back. So there are a couple of players in recent times that haven't actually done that. And you were just talking about upsets and things like that. In 2005, that's when Sean Murphy won his one and only world title, and he'd come through the qualifiers. I don't know whether there's anyone else that's come through the qualifiers, come out of absolutely nowhere, and gone on to win the whole tournament. But he'll always stick out in my mind for that very simple reason. Yeah, I mean, it's very, very hard for certain sports to sort of be able to rely on their associations and things like that to support them and look out for them and things. But the snooker's definitely one of them, without question. I mean, you get some people like Ronnie O'Sullivan who've built up so much income over time. He's in a decent position to sort of look out for himself, and certainly players like Judd Trump, who's got a record-breaking 6 titles this season, ranking titles. He's just a quality player, and he can look after himself as well. Not everybody's in that same position, so I guess it also tells us to sort of be careful with our money as well, particularly a time like now. But I mean, it's really good that they're trying to take the initiative and look out for their players. Now the next topic, I don't know unless you got another standard Sean interruption in hand.
Yeah, I
You do,
actually
yeah,
do.
of course.
I was going to say, Judge Trott is the guy in our thumbnail.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. I mean, I absolutely love. I'm a massive, massive fan of Judd. I mean, this will cause a lot of controversy. I really hope people are watching this so they can sort of have a go at me. But I honestly think he is the greatest potter I have ever seen in my life. Yeah, outright potter. Whether it's consistently awesome potting is another matter, but outright potter, he could knock the window shades off a lamp. To be honest with you, but
Harry won't like hearing that. Harry Potter will not like hearing that, by the way.
very funny. All right, well, we'll move on to our next subject then. It's definitely one of our fun subjects. I think it's since we've started, and it's actually starts initially with Formula One. Of course, Formula One has been postponed, as have most sports now. But literally, I think it's actually been streamed. Actually, the first episode, and they've literally taken the initiative to have a Formula One eSports tournament or something like that. Yeah, I know. It just made me smile when I saw this because, quite simply, well, why aren't other sports doing it? I mean, when you think about it, a majority of sports have actually got games that they've actually got alongside it, and it's a bit of silly fun. You're all going to be stuck at home, so I think when one of our friends said, "What am I going to do? I've got no football on TV," and I quickly responded with, "Yeah, you do. It's called FIFA." So, and it's exactly. I'm going to come up to that as well, but yeah, they've basically just taken it upon themselves to sort of create a little tournament for the drivers to sort of have an esports version of it. Esports is absolutely massive at the moment as well. Of course, there are FIFA and Pro Evo tournaments that go on a yearly basis, aren't they? And it's quite big now. You can see it on YouTube. I think it's even on Sky Sports, and massively popular at the moment. But it's great that they've done this for the drivers. It's for all of us tuning in, we kind of wanted to see people like Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel and Bottas and Max Verstappen and people like that. And I guess now you can, but on a game. What do you think about that then? Do you agree with it? I think it's a great idea.
And I was reading up on some of the contestants. I really like some of the backup drivers are actually having the opportunity to show their ability. One racer I really liked, Lucas Salvadori. He's a really good racer himself, underestimated. Even they've got famous singers that are participating as well. And I think that's really, really good. It was on Sky Sports, as you said, that it was already pre-recorded. They had a lot of the punditry, and it was just so good-natured. Everybody was happy just for the event to be around. And you could even argue that it's helped influence other sports in order to do this. We had a lot of football sports having the match of the day on BBC One yesterday with the pundits.
Saw that, yeah.
Yeah. And even
it's
Monday
very
night
weird for me, actually.
Yeah.
What was it? You had Shearer and Ian Wright just sitting in Gary Lineker's kitchen. My first thought was, what are you guys doing? You're supposed to be 2 feet apart, 2 meters apart. Get away from each other.
Yeah. And it was just a great idea. And you can even argue that the Formula One virtual sport is a power sport that we're able to influence other sports to still have fun, try to make the most of this isolation period that we can, with the power of technology, like what we're doing right now, we can do so many things that in order to limit the lack of physical interaction.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I touched on this earlier on, and I just think it would be great if the footballers are doing it, setting up some sort of online league or something like that. I don't do it enough, to be honest.
I think Barney are doing sorting it out. Andros Townsend is going to represent Crystal Palace.
Okay.
They've got teams all over Europe and all over the world. I don't think they've got the amount of contestants, but you can again.
Contestant? Why do you keep saying contestant? It's not a dating show. It's blind date. That's what it is, isn't it? Blind date for footballers. That's what it is.
Sunday night. To get some of their Sunday night message in. So many shows have been cancelled, so trying to use the words for any of the viewers watching.
But no, I mean, it's just I don't see why they're not doing it. I mean, football, if anything's got even more of an opportunity for you to sort of play it on a larger scale, on a grander scale, and things like that. You know, you could potentially have 2, maybe 3 players representing your the same team, for example. You know, you could have a striker from your team and a midfielder from your team and a defender from your team. I don't know how they're going to logistically do this, but if they're only controlling their own part of the pitch. I mean, I'm not a tech guy, so I mean, I wouldn't. If it's possible for anyone to do that, by all means, let me know. But yeah, that's surely a good way of making it a bit of a team thing. During this period, you could even create A and B teams if more than 3 or 4 of you want to play. But I just think you could make something quite fun out of this. You know, some people are playing kicky uppies with toilet roll. Stop that, by the way. But I've seen that they think it's a challenge. You're wasting toilet roll. But basically, I just think it would be really good if a lot of these guys just got involved. You know, it's the kind of thing that people love watching these kinds of things. I'm guilty of watching people play FIFA and things like that. So, also, for the record, guys, if anybody would like to see me attempt to play a bit of FIFA, make a comment, and I might actually try and do it. Don't know how I'll set it up, but you know, make a comment, request it if you want, and I might just try putting some of these videos up for you as well. As a side thing. But
another thing that the Formula One could do even further is that sometimes people do not realize the art skill of being a Formula One driver in the first place. So, and you're never actually going to be able. The majority of us will never actually be able to compete against these guys. So imagine an initiative that you can actually drive against the real Lewis Hamilton, or these other these other drivers. It would be fantastic. Button, I'm not sure he can come and do some good driving.
Oh, Jensen's fantastic. Yeah, I still think. I mean, I think him winning the world champs when he did in 2009 in an almost out of nowhere car. You know, it wasn't even supposed to be ready to make it onto the track, and then all of a sudden, one of the team principals basically renamed it Brawn GP, and he went on to win the title, and his teammate came second. So, but I just think he's a quality driver. I just think he was in the wrong car for too long. But yeah, no, I think that's a really cool idea. Yeah, just being able to challenge them. I mean, in the current climate, you could find a way of doing some sort of EF1 races or something. You know, me v Lewis or something like that. You know, I don't really know if that would appeal. I suspect most of them will be rooting for him. But what is really cool and what we don't appreciate as fans as much is the fact that they aren't just trying to look to get to the end of the race first. They want to get there pretty quickly as well, especially when you're doing a qualifying laps and the previous day. So you only really appreciate when you properly analyze what they're doing. That they're actually sometimes going on the curb because it's the right line for them to save time. Obviously, you can't go completely on the curb because that's just not allowed. But they're cutting the curb a little bit because it gives them the best line, best opportunity to get there around the corner as quickly as possible. And it's something that only the better drivers can appreciate and understand. You and I, for starters, we wouldn't be able to do it. We don't, especially in normal life, we don't cut a curb just because we want to turn left down the road when we're in our normal car. But yeah, they're just very, very skilled and amazing at what they do.
What's interesting then? I just thought of a good idea while you were talking about how good these rate drivers are. There was a recent movie, obviously, in memorial given. My words are flabbergasted. The Matt Damon movie and Christian Bale movie, in which they
Damon Bale.
So they've done a movie of previous Formula One drivers where during the 50s, 60s, and when
Oh, it's just recently come out. It was Ford Ferrari, wasn't it?
yeah. So yeah, exactly. So imagine having even themes where these two drivers could, as the non-professional, go against professionals as well. It's another interesting theme that people would probably like to watch as well. And it was very good acting.
I hope these normal people are really darn good, because all they'll see otherwise is the back of the other car.
Yeah,
Um, maybe let some of the better drivers race against the back of the pack drivers. It might be
yeah.
an intriguing competition. You still expect the pros to win, but it could be an interesting one, because I mean, Lewis for me is one of, if not the best drivers around. Certainly in this generation, without question, he is the best. But
So many championships.
hmm?
So many championships.
Yeah, absolutely. He's won. God, he's won 6. I should know this. He's won 6, and he's in position right now. I think he's on 83. It's 82, 83, 84. And race wins. He's a mere 8 or 9 away from Schumacher's record. And he's also got, about 20, 30 more pole laps than anybody else ever. So
And
he's
that,
surpassed that. So he's in a position where if they actually have another season and he wins the title, he's more than likely going to also surpass the number of race wins that Schumacher had. And for those that sort of, I'm not sure, I can't officially say he is the best until he matches or surpasses Schumacher. That might be the tipping point, I guess, for a lot of these guys. So
but you can also argue what's really good about Hamilton is how he recovered after, obviously he had his previous partnership with Alonso wasn't really good, and then Sebastian Vettel came out of
they
nowhere for
got
some.
they got along okay-ish. I mean, it was more when the breakup happened with McLaren, it was more just the issues that Alonso had with McLaren. Ron Dennis is quite strict and to the point, you see. So I think he fell out more with. I think Alonso fell out more with Ron than he did with Lewis. Potentially a couple of disagreements, but not to the same extent. I mean, for Alonso, who I rate for me in the last generation or so as maybe only second to Lewis, to come out and say this guy's the best driver, and in the lineup, and I don't really understand how Sebastian Vettel's got quite as many wins and titles as he has. Well, we all know the reason. It's because he was just in a really damn good car. And it's the better drivers who are given a weaker car, either in general or just a bad car for the company. Vettel's had bad Ferrari cars in recent times, and he's not outperformed the car, is what I'm saying.
I agree.
Lewis has actually been the cars that have started going on a downward spiral, even with McLaren before he moved. And Mercedes, when they were starting to get an upward trajectory, he had bad races, but he's just still found a way of just making something out of nothing. Alonso was absolutely fantastic at that, and I think a lot of people will also agree that in relation to Alonso. It's very easy to forget he is a world champion, and he didn't do it in Ferrari. He got back-to-back world titles with Renault, including beating Schumacher before Schumacher retired. I mean, come on. That in itself is ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, we started with eSports, and we started then I started doing a passionate F1 speech. But yeah,
It shows how many good stars, good drivers there've been. Button we spoke about as well. He's another guy that literally came out of nowhere in terms of he took over Lewis Hamilton that season when he won the championships as well. As his Vettel another year. So it just shows how good Hamilton did to recover his position. Some people thought he was done. Some people thought he was washed up. And he thought not washed up, but he was too busy with the fame and the fame. Then he broke up with his missus at the time, and everyone thought he didn't have the mental mindset. So it's been really good how he's been able to recover and win so many championships.
Yeah, I mean, it takes, of course, the recent Mercedes car's been pretty darn good, but it's very easy to forget that, in his first season, he should have actually won the title. And it was on the final day that he kind of slipped up and he gifted the title to Raikkonen. And again, Raikkonen's someone a lot of people are big fans of, but I still think even as a rookie, he probably should have won it. He made up for it in the following year, but he almost lost that on the final day as well. That was dramatic. But then after that, from 2008, he didn't win it again, and for another 4 or 5 years. That was when Jensen won it, and then it was 4 years of Vettel, and then it became the Mercedes show after that. But then at the same time, just to give you an insight as to how scary the guy has become as a driver, the fact that he won a series of titles with Mercedes, and then through a series of unfortunate car issues and things like that, in 2016 his teammate Nico Rosberg, who's just been trying everything to beat Lewis, won the title, and then he retired straight away. It was basically, and he sort of half said this, but he didn't use the exact words, but he was basically saying, I don't know how I can beat this guy when he's on it all the time, and he hasn't got any car issues. I don't want to go through that again. And and I completely respect the fact that he basically said, well, I want to leave on a high, and then there's no bigger high than winning the highest accolade available to you in your sport. So I can't have a go at Nico. I'm big fan of Nico. Those two didn't get along quite as much in their F1 days, but they are childhood friends. So they go way back. I'm sure there's a lot of mutual respect there. But it just gives you an idea of the level of the man himself. But
I have to interrupt one more thing. It reminds me of some of the comments I've been receiving from some people are too shy to comment on our videos. It's really good that we've been speaking about Formula One, because some people have called your epic blue gaming chair the Formula One chair. So I thought I'd just throw that in there.
Don't think anyone said that. I haven't seen it in the comments.
Yeah.
That's it. Oh, just one of the. This is just a gaming chair. Okay. Well, you're gonna have to start talking more again, because the next and final topic is basically just. I know you've got a lot to talk about in regards to football. This episode in particular has been 70-80% dedicated to other sports. We feel like, we felt like we've maybe left it to the end, or not given it quite as much dedication, and particularly with the headline regarding the Olympics, it needed to be mentioned. I think it had to be prioritized. It's a massive event. So we know we've got our football fans there, and I'm sure some of you footy fans really want to hear a bit about footy. So Sean, floor's all yours. I'm going to sit back and relax now.
So thank you. So it's like to mention no football is actually happening. So we're talking about how we were speaking yesterday, how footballers themselves and the football governing bodies tend to have a massive impact in attacking societal issues and trying to approach in a positive manner. So we spoke about Lewandowski donating €1 million in order to help the fight against coronavirus, to help the patients. Another news that just came recently was that Toby Alderweireld, the Belgian defender.
One more time. What's his name?
Toby Alderweireld.
Alderweireld.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Alderweireld.
Thank you, Taz. So he's not sitting back. He just Taz-missioned me again. So Toby, let's call him Big Tobe. He's donating electronic devices to those infected with coronavirus, to the patients, in order to help ease any mental stress they may be going through, so they can communicate with their loved ones. Because obviously, you may have seen in Sky News, a lot of people that are infected, like in Italy, they have to be in very serious, like a lot of equipment around them, and they can't really actually have any engagement physically with people, and so it will help alleviate any pressure that these guys are going through. Another piece of news is Ronaldo. I didn't actually mention this 2 days ago. We were talking about clubs slashing wages. Juventus is another club that are set to slash wages of many players, including Ronaldo. But that hasn't stopped him and his agent, a guy that this Taz guy loves. His agent and Ronaldo are going to set to spend a lot of money in order to help Portugal counter this whole coronavirus pandemic in their country. And then let's just finally talk about Taz's two favourite footballers of Man United, who may finally have an opportunity to look for new pastures. Oh, sorry. There's more football to talk about. Unfortunately, today, even after our last broadcast, which we then premiered today and premiered on Sunday, Dybala of Juventus, unfortunately, he was diagnosed as having coronavirus. And then on Sunday, which is when we're broadcasting this whole Skype conversation, and you will see it tomorrow, premiered on Monday, Fellaini and Paolo Maldini and his son have also been tested positive. So, but Fellaini said he's not really going through the major symptoms, which is good news. And Maldini seems to be fine as well. So we're just hoping that everyone else can try to be as healthy as possible. Unfortunately, maybe send our regards, our condolences to Mr. Sands, an ex-Real Madrid chairman who unfortunately passed away. He was part of the vulnerable category of those that could really deteriorate if they were to contract this deadly virus. And let's try to get a bit more positive football news. Jesse Lingard, what do you feel about his possible impending departure from you guys?
Well, and Pereira, actually, isn't it? Yeah. I think Pereira, weirdly enough, might actually be less likely, but I think when Jesse Lingard linked up with everybody's favourite Mino Raiola, it was a sure sign that, he was either looking for a move or he was just sort of ready in any kind of scenario. So, I mean, I've, along with Marcus Rashford, I've been a massive fan of the two of them alongside each other, but I can't really defend the way he's played in the last 12 to 18 months. And the thing about him is you could defend his idiocy on social media because he was actually doing okay on the pitch. But when that's faltering as well, it's very, very hard to sort of defend him and say, he'll be fine. 18 months, 12 to 18 months is a very long time to have been so off. He's only scored in cup games against rather weak opposition. I think he scored against who has he scored against? He scored against Tranmere. He scored against one of the weaker sides, I think, in our Europa League group.
It was that the League One side when even Harry Maguire finally scored.
That was Tranmere, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I said. I said it already. But no, I mean, it's hard to defend him at the moment, and sometimes all you need is just a fresh move, a fresh start, and that might just be what it. There's no question there's quality there. It's just, and as a squad player, I think that's always what we've always thought. It'd be a really decent squad player to have, never a starter, because he will chase and chase and chase and chase like there's no tomorrow and hunt the ball down, and you'll always get work rate out of him, but just there's been a real lack of productivity in recent years. Well, in the last couple of years, so
he also in the 13-game unbeaten run, but He's actually stated this is quite interesting to talk about quickly if we're allowed to. He mentioned that he had family problems. Well, me and Tad may disagree on how much of an impact it may have, because Rooney, despite having his problems, loving his grannies, he was still able to perform really well. Jesse would talk about his mum his mum's health deteriorated so much after last year, and he had the responsibility of looking after his younger siblings, his younger brother and sister, and he said it impacted him too so much. And you can argue that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, having the relationship he has with Jesse through the academy when he used to run the academy all those years ago, probably was a bit more lenient than he could have been. And Jesse said that impacted his form. But again, I think that's probably a good reason. But as you said, at the end of the day, we're in a results game, and he may need a new chance.
But I mean, at the same time, though, so often when you've got your troubles in life, you find players or something bad's happened in life. You always find that they find something extra, though. They sort of, I want to do this for you. I want to do this for this person. I just thought Paul Pogba lost his father just a couple of days before that Europa League final, and similarly, just a couple of days prior to that Europa League final, that horrific attack on one of the Manchester venues, was it the MEN Arena or something, happened as well, and you just felt the whole of the city, even the Man City fans, almost just pour together as one, and it felt like that Europa League final a few days later was just always only going to go one way, because everyone was just going to give that much extra. You could see it on Pogba's face. It just meant more. He wasn't just doing it for the team today; he was doing it for his late father. And I think I kind of thought if Jesse had been going through something like that, maybe that would have been his way of sort of releasing some pain, or releasing some of that, and then on the pitch. And sometimes that's sometimes being in that kind of environment that you're familiar with, you can shut out the world a little bit, and then you can just produce another level, or a level that you've lost. I can't sit and pretend like I know what he's gone through, though.
Look at Igalo. You always love to talk about Igalo's situation, or how he's so motivated to perform for Man United. What happened to his sister, unfortunately, in December?
Yeah, I mean, he had two reasons. It's his dream club, and he said every goal I score, it's for her. She was a massive fan as well. His whole family is a massive fan. So he was just clearly saying, this isn't for me, this is for them, but there it is, it's just like, it's the outpouring. It's Igalo's dream club, but it's also Jesse's dream club, who he's grown up in and has known nothing less. So that's why I'm disappointed it's not worked out for him. But I do feel like Pereira as well, it is the right time for both of them to go. I just don't think they both got the level needed. Maybe as a sub, but you want players to be competing for that starting spot. I sympathise with people like Delo, because you ain't getting into that team. But the competition between Brandon Williams, and that's credit to him, and of course Ollie for giving him the chance, and Shaw is so refreshing. There's almost a bit of a competition between Bailly and Lindelof at the moment for the starting berth, centre back. If we get the right midfielder signings in, then be a competition between players like Matic, Fred, and McTominay, and who are you going to drop in that? And that's a nice position to be in. And part of the problem we've had this season is you can't, if you lose someone, certainly if they're an important one, you've never really felt, well, this person can take the reins. And and handle it. And that's the
I
thing.
tell you
So
what, yeah. And that's like, sorry, like I'll tell you one person who it won't be. Have you heard the news about Zlatan Ibrahimovic?
what about him?
So apparently, it may not be confirmed news. He he has a contract he signed with AC Milan where it was till June and had the option of extending it for another year. The Milan backroom staff keep it's like a revolving door. Boban and Maldini are apparently leaving, and so therefore that has apparently influenced his decision to, as we're talking about Man United midfield and signings beforehand, Zlatan will be not one player returning because he's apparently deciding to go for a managerial career now.
Interesting. So you're basically saying he's going to retire.
Yeah, that's what the latest transfer rumors have suggested that he is
Interesting.
looking. Yeah,
I
imagine a player like
I'd be
him being a
intrigued
manager.
to know. I'd be intrigued to know what would be like with him, because he's got, like Roy Keane, he's got a massive ego, but they are different egos. Roy Keane was, he knew, he's sort of, I know what I'm saying is right, that kind of thing, but and he did back it up on the pitch. He just didn't really adapt his playing style to a managerial style, and I'm worried that, is Zlatan able to sort of hone that down a bit, or will he still be the same guy? Look, you've got to play well because I've signed you. That's because Zlatan said. Zlatan has chosen you, so Zlatan says you must be a good player.
That could be a motivational factor, but again, are players like look at the Jose Mourinho situation? Are players too soft-hearted, or are they willing to take criticism? Like if, for example, if Zlatan was to say you're performing bad, but you're a Zlatan player perform better, like how Mourinho targets Ndombele.
I
We're not
think
sure if players can cope.
I just think it's not his style of play. Like, people say he used to have a go at players like Terry, Lampard, and Drogba and things like that. But if you look at them, I mean, Terry was just always going to fight back. Drogba's a rugged guy; he will fight back. Lampard is probably the only guy who I'd say, well, he's an absolute gentleman. He was always a gentleman off the pitch, on and off the pitch. He played it the right way. He played it the right way, and he's doing the same thing as a manager. From a neutral standpoint, I really wish him the best of luck as well. I think he's
Got
a
a lot
class
of
act. He's a class act. But
there's a few games when I remember a few games like he used to attend Fulham with one of our mutual friends, and a lot of people used to call Frank Lampard "you fat," and then he would play along with the fans as well. He would just like that's why I was imitating. He would imitate that he's a fat guy, and then fans, Fulham fans, Derby rivals would just laugh. That's how much of a good gentleman Lampard was.
well, he played. I mean, he didn't goad anyone. He didn't. He played along with these things. He was always very, good humoured. And But yeah, I really like that he sort of carried on like that. And you get some players who used to be quite aggressive and things like that, and then they mellow down considerably. I think Stuart Pearce is a great example of that. And we called him Psycho, didn't we, when he was on the pitch? And now all of a sudden, he's very meticulous in the way he says things. He's very mild mannered. Whether he'll ever truly become a quality manager, I don't know. But I like him as a manager. I think he's changed so much, and I think Roy Keane very quickly worked out that either managing's not for him, or he's got to change his style, and whether he's willing to do that is another matter. I don't know.
Very good on 21 manager to do it here as well. He was a bit unlucky for England a few times, but you could tell, and he was very good having him as an assistant as well during his time with England as well. And you just respect him. We'll always remember that Euro 96 penalty, redeeming himself for the 1990 penalty miss.
That was emotional, yeah.
Yeah.
That was emotional. But it's a shame that so many of these almost after the things happened, redemption things that sort of almost don't matter as much. I mean, yeah, like the biggest heartbreak, and then it was like a bit of redemption, but it was sort of like, yeah, but you know, it doesn't erase what happened.
It's like Beckham in 1998 when a certain Diego Simeone called him in to foul him, and then Beckham reacted, and then he scored a penalty at the following World Cup when Mike Owen dived against, interestingly, a Pochettino.
Mm,
Pochettino fouled him there. So it's funny how these guys we
come
didn't
back.
hate Diego Simeone, and now certain non-Liverpool fans love Diego Simeone. Tottenham fans probably hated Pochettino for just playing for Argentina at the time, and now they loved him for what he did.
Simeone is an interesting one, doesn't he? I mean, we'll keep it very brief. You know, got to wrap up very shortly anyway. But um, he's a lot of people say, well, he's a boring manager. He's a defensive manager. He does this. He does that. Well, he he has a style, and there is still an element of aggression and positivity in the way they play. But he's got the whole team kind of working their socks off for the team. Um, it's almost like he's got like the United way of a team that team should work, but without the fast-paced quality that we expect from the team. It's probably the best
And
way of describing it. That's what fans would demand. If he was doing that at United, we'd be like, he's not letting in any goals, but he's not right. You know, similarly with Lukaku, he's scoring he's scoring a decent number of goals, but he's just not right for us. And it's the same sort of thing with Simeone. That's why he's really kind of split opinion when it comes to managers.
he's got, as Klopp was moaning about how he lost to Simeone, you can understand Klopp being upset. But as he said, it's if you're supporting the English side, or I support any English team, but if you're supporting Liverpool, then you can understand Klopp's point of view that one team's attacking. But football is not a team. It's not a sport of just attack. You also need to defend, and these are talented players that just defended with all their hearts, and that is something that needs to be applauded.
Well,
And
it's so often in Europe that people actually say, well, you can't just play the way you want to when you're playing away from home, and to an extent you can't even do that when you're home because the weight of an away goal is massive. You know,
the thing,
the second Atletico got one of their goals, which made the tie level, which was when it was officially 2-2 in the tie after during extra time. We just felt it's game over. There's still time, but game over. You know, you're basically saying, all right, Liverpool score. You
yeah.
know, an extra goal and against a team that's a brick wall and isn't going to move.
And it was one goal that probably defined Adrian's whole season, in which before that, before his performance, he was and he did have a bad game the weekend before and against Wolves. I mean, sorry, Watford. But when Alisson was first injured early in the season, people were giving him a lot of deserved plaudits. He helped Liverpool beat Chelsea in the European Super Cup. He helped Liverpool forget that Alisson was about to come back because he was that much of a commanding goalkeeper. It's the same as the De Gea conversation we've had before. Yes, these keepers have done mistakes, but it's because they are the keeper. Their whole errors are magnified a lot more. And you have to look at the whole defense itself. The second goal by Llorente against Liverpool, the defense was clearly not there. The players were exhausted. And for Morata to run so far in order to supply and assist Llorente, the defense was non-existent. And you have to give some of the blame, not just to the keeper, but to the other players as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, but that's the whole point of playing as one, playing as a team. Which is why when you criticised, Harry Maguire in particular, I said it's not him that you need to be focused on; it's the whole defence. And right now they're working very very well as a team. De Gea is still having to make a couple of good saves, but you know when you've got a good backline, backline working together at least, they're going to have to try really hard to sort of get through the gap and score past you. But well, we've dragged on again.
Oh, and then one more big transfer rumor. We'll discuss it probably tomorrow. I'm sorry. Yeah, the Formula One car. Okay. Coutinho. That rumor has gone a lot more, shot up a lot more. Maybe, maybe the Barcelona staff, the backroom staff are trying to spread rumors to the media that Coutinho is not coming back because they need the money in order to fund Neymar. So apparently Coutinho is dead set to return to the Premiership rather than going to Bayern Munich permanently, in which is what we thought that Flick would actually want to keep him at Bayern Munich. But it's interesting that now there may be scrabble for Coutinho to return, and does that affect this? It may affect who gets Sancho. It may affect who gets all a host of players.
Yeah, but who wants him?
Apparently, a lot of the Premiership clubs.
I mean, it's all right, but fine. I mean, people want him, but who wants him for the specific place in their team at the moment?
Chelsea, Liverpool, and Tottenham are top of my head.
They want.
So Liverpool, as we saw, they lack creativity. If you can go against Liverpool's hard work, they do not have a creative player that can break stubborn defenses, which is the big reason why they lost to Atletico Madrid. Especially when they're tired, a Klopp team works so hard that eventually they will fall tired, and they lack depth. And especially when they do not have the guidance of Henderson for a lot of these games, except for the Atletico Madrid game, he just wasn't a 100% returning from injury. If they have.
Okay. But the follow-up question to that is, therefore, then, well, who can afford him?
There you go. Chelsea,
Can they?
Tottenham. If Tottenham could afford him, that means if they could afford him, how many other players would they be able also to sign? Because they have got a limited transfer budget. They do need.
Why can they afford him then? Because I don't think he's a priority signing. They need to sort. They got decent midfielders. They don't have a defense.
Yeah,
8 defenders. So why would they prioritize him over just finding a younger defender? The two big issues are: do they need him? Not just them. I just mean, do you need this player? Will they make a difference? Can you make space for them in the team? And finally, can you afford them? And are you willing to cough up for them when in certain cases they may be a luxury player rather than an absolute necessity? Like when we discussed the signings that I felt we need, you could just see gaping holes.
But there's another factor you have to remember: will the player actually come? The problem that's happened with a lot of clubs, like with Man United, you guys were just so obsessed with signing Harry Maguire. The most important signing was getting a defender. Because you prioritized a defender, it made it difficult to then look forward to replace Lukaku. Same thing with Tottenham. They've got so many gaping holes. They wanted to get rid of so many fullbacks.
That wasn't down to the obsession. That was just down to the fact that this ownership is so ridiculously slow at getting anything done. I bet they might very well have been looking at other areas. I mean, the fact that they sold Lukaku as late as they did, our window, we'd done our business before that. If we'd sold Lukaku and then thought, well, a few days prior to that, because we had someone else lined up, it could have happened. So it's not down to the fact that it was an obsession on him. It was just down to the fact that they were shockingly slow at doing any kind of business.
A lot of
clubs have been done at the start of the month in January.
Yeah, I think this could be a conversation we can go on for a long time. But you can look at Tottenham as well. They want to sell all of their fullbacks. Aurier was meant to go. Rose was meant to go. Trippier, he just didn't have a chance. He must have had a personal dilemma with Pochettino. He's even recently said that if he was ever to return to England, it would be to play under Sean Dyche. And whether that would be at Burnley or not, we don't know.
Interesting. Okay, well, that's certainly one to ponder. But we have dragged on, as we always do. I think it's time for us to sort of give our good fans a bit of a rest and call it a day. Yep. Sean and I will be back and tomorrow. But yeah, stay healthy, everyone. Stay safe, and it's a good night from us. Yeah. See you later, guys.
And it's good that we spoke about different sports, and it was
He's ruined
paramount.
it again. Go on, you may as well.
So the Formula One car, you mean? Your Formula One seat. I know that's really liked how it's as Taz always wants. I'm always obsessed talking about football. But Taz did this really good research. I want to give a lot of plaudits to him for coming up with the decisions that we should look at to spend more time looking at these other sports. And we both looked into the scheduling what we wanted to talk about, and he came up with a good idea of focusing on the other sports, and I think he deserves a lot of plaudits, and for today he deserves a lot of the likes.
Thanks, buddy. Let's let everyone rest now. All right, see you later, guys. Take it easy.